And hello, and welcome to the first of this afternoon's talks. Today, or this afternoon, we're going to be talking about Medtech out of adversity. My name is Jim Richards. I'm Professor of Biomechanics here at University of Central Lancashire, and I'm also the lead for the Medtech Solutions Group here at UCLan. I'm very, very happy that I'm being joined by James Leinhart from Levitex and Richard Taylor from Pepco, who will be giving you their experiences of trying to innovate during lockdown, and they've got some fantastic stories that they're going to be telling you later. So before we get into the core of their case studies, what I'm going to briefly do is describe the Medtech Solutions Group. Now, the Medtech Solutions Group was formed at the University of Central Lancashire to bring scientists, engineers, and technicians together. And the idea for bringing us all together was to help solve some of the problems faced by the NHS and the healthcare sector. So this was absolutely critical at the height of COVID, of course, that we actually had a quick response. And I know the term quick response in universities isn't often used together, but we wanted to offer a quick response to be able to offer new technology or technology to solve problems. So the work that UCLan offers and the Medtech Solution Group offers covers the whole of the innovation pathway, right from initial ideas through concepts, through evaluation and clinical trials, all the way up to implementation and actual changing clinical practice. So this is the scope that we're looking at trying to cover. So what is involved in the Medtech Solutions Group, or who is in the Medtech Solutions Group? Well, we have expertise across the spectrum. We have people who've got expertise in mechatronics and intelligent machines. We've got additive manufacturing and 3D printing. We've got design and development of medical devices and the testing of the medical devices. And we've also got people involved in computer and machine learning for health sciences. And also we have data scientists. So we have a huge scope. And what we wanted to do with the Medtech Solutions Group is to bring everybody under one banner, if you will. So if somebody contacts the university, we're then able to fast track and try and make sure that the right individuals get to the right people for the right innovation support. So I'm now going to talk to you about a few case studies. So we've got the design and development and testing of medical devices. Now, this is something that my own group, the Allied Health Research Unit, have been doing for many, many years. And it's really important that we have the right evidence to support whether a product is effective or whether it is efficacious in trying to correct, say, a deformity or correct a pathology or correct some dysfunction. So we've got a range of work that we've been doing over the years, from dealing with helping very small companies. Now, what I'm showing you on screen here is a device which we used to, or was developed to basically keep the legs apart at night. Seems a very simple idea, but this changed the hip position, and in changing the hip position, it changed the spinal loads, and this really worked extremely well at reducing back pain in some cases. And we ran a whole randomized control trial on a micro company. We managed to run a randomized control trial, which then gave this company sufficient evidence to then get prescription pricing approval, which is absolutely necessary if we're trying to get this into clinical practice. We've also been working a lot with the engineering department here, where we're looking at scanning of different parts of the body, and then from the scanning, we're then able to create bespoke interventions. And you see this is some foot orthoses that are based on scanning and 3D printing. But we also deal with much larger companies. So we have work which goes on with perhaps some of the largest international companies in medical device arena. So the two devices that I'm showing you here, one which we call a walker and one which is this red knee brace, these were developed with the research and development testing that we did here with the company, which is based in Vista, California. So now let's think about other aspects of what the work we can do. Additive manufacturing. Now, at the height of COVID, there was a real need for respirator parts, in particular, continuous positive airway pressure machines. And one of our staff, Johnny Meadowcroft, came up with the idea that he could actually 3D print, scan and 3D print a lot of these respirator parts when they were really scarce. And as a result, we actually were able to provide the NHS with a lot of 3D printed parts, which actually got them out of this crisis. And this is a wonderful quote from Dr. Jim Gardner, who is the medical director of Blackpool NHS Teaching Hospitals, NHS Foundation Trust. So this really helped in actually getting a lot of patients, the most critically ill patients, to actually get through COVID. So without us having this rapid response and doing this 3D printing, this additive manufacturing of these products, then the NHS Trust would have been really struggling with supply and demand at that time. We're also using 3D printing or additive manufacturing to make different orthotic devices. Here's one here, which you're seeing on the screen as well. So this is a 3D printed ankle-foot orthosis, and this is a common device that we would give to somebody who's had a stroke or somebody with cerebral palsy. But what we're trying to do is improve the fit and the design of these. So we are now scanning and designing a prescription of how much load that we're wanting to be supported by the device. So this really brings into some recent research that we've been doing to looking at ankle-foot orthoses, AFOs, with a view to reduce manufacturing lead times so we get the products out to the individual faster, reducing waste materials and allowing this efficient design. But most importantly, what we're also trying to do is improve the aesthetics of these. And what we're wanting to do is to make sure that the patients are wanting to wear these. So within the 3D printing, we can do all sorts of interesting skins on the AFOs. We're exploring with all of this to improve the usability and the user's involvement with wearing these devices. We're also doing some work with exoskeletons for rehabilitation. Now, this is an area of continued development, and what we're usually considering when we are talking about exoskeletons and rehabilitation is these tend to cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. So we're now using 3D printing or additive manufacturing techniques to be able to make 3D printed, scalable spinal bracing and also spinal exoskeletons and other body part exoskeletons. Now, this enables us to then be able to prescribe these for children, and these are now sufficiently low cost that this is now a really fascinating innovation. So Matt Dickinson is leading that work. And this offers a personalized bespoke device at reasonable costs, which is a key element in this area. We've also been doing some work on all-in-one treatment devices for sports injuries. And one of the things that we often do with sports injuries is either cool somebody down or warm them up. So what we have is a new device. This is from a development of a device that we had within a knowledge transfer partnership, so funded work. So we were able to get the funding to support the company over a 3-year project, which then allowed us to target treatments. And this has been recently used by this chap, who some of you may know, who actually had a really bad ankle injury, a season-ending ankle injury, and he is now rehabilitated through using this device. And he's written us a nice testimonial there. But we also have a lot of research as well to back up the usage of these. But it's not just about physical products. What we're also doing, we're doing a lot of work with computer vision and machine learning. And Bogdan from the engineering department here has been doing a lot of work with the compensation and computational science and oncology network. And this has led to a new technique of scanning or analyzing the endoscopic aspects of the colon. And he's been using this to determine as an early scanning to determine the categorization of people after colonoscopy. So this is obviously tremendously impactful work, and if this goes forwards, this means we can have quicker scans and perhaps more accurate scans of the colon to early detect cancer. Finally, we offer a series of funding opportunities. Now, some of this we talked about earlier at the session on 10 o'clock, but for those that weren't there, we have the Centre for SME Development, we have the Innovation Clinic where we do product testing, we have Health Matters, which is around supporting businesses to validate their products in a real-world environment within the NHS, and Medicom, which promotes the adoption of these innovations into the NHS. So all of these come in, again, under this banner. But it's not just about those funding schemes. We also have the development of knowledge transfer partnerships where we're supporting companies through other means. Innovate UK funding is a common thing that we are bidding for to support companies. EPSRC, Engineering and Physical Science Research Council, and many, many more. So now, finally, how do you get in contact with us? Well, we have a website. Of course, we have a website. Everyone has a website. But the Medtech Solutions Group website can be found just by searching Medtech Solutions UCLan, but the information's there as well. So now what I'm going to do is hand over to the first of my guest speakers, which is Richard Taylor from Pepco. And Richard, we first met virtually. This is the first time we've actually met physically. So we met virtually back in June last year, and we've been working together since then. So he's now going to take you on his journey through innovation during the COVID pandemic. Over to you, Richard.
Great, thank you, Jim, for that. So I'm Richard. I'm from a design agency called Mouse, and during the pandemic, we developed the PPE Eco face visor, which Jim's mentioned. But before we get onto that, I want to get you to cast your minds back to pre-COVID. Yes, there was a time that this wasn't here, and what were the biggest challenges facing us then? Was it Brexit looming? Was it Donald Trump's impeachment? Or was it just what you were going to go and get for Harry and Meghan's new baby, Archie? Well, the UN actually back in 2015 had the Sustainable Development Goals that they put forward as actually some of the biggest considerations that we needed to take in. And the 17 goals, you can see them listed down here on the slide. And they cover all aspects as a world that we need to be thinking about to develop sustainably. One of the things that struck me at the start of the pandemic was the sort of the PPE that was being used was all single-use plastic, or predominantly single-use plastic. And I was really challenged. I'd seen firsthand on our own beach. I've been involved in World Cleanup Days up in Scotland and seen the impact of single-use plastics on our own oceans and shores. And I was really challenged about that and about what we were doing to our planet. Now, obviously, there was a need for PPE, which can't be denied. My wife's a GP, and I saw her struggling to get hold of the PPE that she needed, and she had to go down the local B&Q to procure safety glasses. I started to think, don't we have a choice here? Don't we have a choice to choose a sustainable alternative to plastics when we look to get PPE produced and made? And that's really where the idea for the PPE Eco face visor came up. And as a design agency, we're always looking for ways to improve and do things slightly differently. And there was a huge need, a huge demand from the marketplace. PPE was in short supply, if we sort of remember right back to the start of the pandemic. So we put a proposal together that actually we wanted to create environmentally friendly PPE. And we put that to Innovate UK, who had a call out to wider business asking, is there anything that you can do to help innovate in this pandemic and to help us as a country move forward and solve some of the problems that we were facing. So we put a proposal together and we got funding and got the support that we needed to start on this journey. So one of the first things that we'll look at in most design processes, some of you will be familiar with this, is sort of the double diamond. So discover, define, develop and deliver. So we went on the first part of this journey, the discovery. You can see here, this is prototype 1 and prototype 2 and prototype 3 here. This was done on the kitchen table with my son. It was a real discovery. It was great. And actually, I've got the first prototype that we had, which was a very crude mock-up here. But actually, what it did is it started to create thoughts and ideas about how we could solve this differently. The basic concept was a paper-based surround having a much thinner film of plastic there. So the next step was really to start to look at defining some of the goals that we wanted to achieve with this project. Obviously, it had to be effective protection. It had to be comfortable and easy to see through. We wanted to make it plastic-free and make it in the UK as well. Obviously, we mentioned the eco-friendly piece, but also think a little bit about the supply chain and the logistics of it and how that's packed. So we wanted to try and condense that down. At the time, we were talking to Swansea Bay Hospital Trust, and they were saying that they were getting face visors in bin bags, fully assembled, and that were really difficult to store. So that's something else we wanted to build into it. Then we moved on to the developing stage. I think we got over 70 different prototypes produced in a couple of months, and we really started to understand exactly what we were creating here and solve lots of problems. And that's a fantastic stage. As an industrial designer by trade, it was where I was most comfortable, and we looked to get to a final design that we believed was going to be the right product for the market and provide all of those criteria that we'd specified at the stage before. We went ahead and we got a batch production run done of the face visor. You can see here we've got one of that batch there, and that allowed us to really take the next steps with this product and move forward. It's really important, I think, to just stop as well as on this journey and mention the partners. So we had a number of development partners. When we started out as a design agency, we had a good sort of power base or network, but actually through this project and through Innovate UK and the network that sort of grew from this project, we ended up with a number of development partners that were absolutely critical to the success of this project. And I think that's key with any innovation. You've got to really look to utilise your network in that. We worked with the National Physics Laboratory. You can see here on the slide some of the testing that they did. They did some digital testing to make sure we'd conform with the CE certifications and the compliance regulations that we needed to hit for a piece of PPE. And we worked on a number of iterations off the back of their work. And as Jim mentioned, we met and I've been working with UCLan and the team, Jim's team, over the course of this project. And they've helped in a number of different ways, from doing market testing. So with that batch, the first batch that we were able to produce, they took this into the field, essentially into the medical field, into industry, into hospitality, and did a number of different tests. I mean, this is just a snippet of a few of the questions, but looking at quality, looking at weight of the visor, looking at the head temperature. I think it's really important to get these validations as you're going through a process. It's okay having an idea, but actually you've got to put it into the marketplace. You've got to get that feedback. And the team at UCLan also helped develop the assembly instructions. So again, we mentioned it was going to come in a flat pack form, but actually we needed to educate the user on how to assemble that. So we worked to get the infographics for that done. Another local university was Lancaster University that we worked with. At the start of the process, we knew we wanted to be more environmentally friendly, but actually what's really important is to challenge even your own preconceptions of what that is, and your material choices in how you've made the product. So we worked with Lancaster's Centre for Global Eco-Innovation, and they were able to do a full life cycle analysis of our product, and also some of the competitor products on the market. And what we found is we were up to 85% less carbon footprint than competitor products. But it wasn't just the carbon footprint. Carbon footprint's a great point to use as a measure, but actually it's other aspects. So we are all of the raw materials were renewable. We obviously had 0% plastic, and the product's fully biodegradable as well. So it's actually all based from wood. It's all based from FSC certified forests. We've got a cellulose diacetate lens there, and we've got a paperboard surround. So actually you can put this visor after use into a standard recycling chain there, and that can then go and make more visors. Now, it wouldn't be innovation and product development without challenges, and there were certainly many to overcome, many opportunities with it as well. But actually, as you start to play into a sphere like PPE on such a national scale, as a micro SME, as a small design agency, it has a number of challenges. It has challenges around market access. It has challenges as the pandemic developed and the market changed, and so we've had to react and move along with those. And as well, the regulatory landscape has also changed, and that continues to be something that we have to monitor. Looking right back to the start, we touched on the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, and actually we managed to hit these different ones listed here. So these sort of good health and well-being, obviously from the protection of the PPE aspect. We've stopped plastic going into the oceans and the water streams. We've helped with the CO2 reduction. We're using raw materials from a sustainable source, and we're being responsible about how we're manufacturing it and our partners there. There's a quote here from Victor Papanek, who wrote this back in 1971. He was a real advocate for environmental design, and he was ostracized really in the design community for being a bit ahead of his time. But he said there are professions more harmful than industrial design, but only a few. And it really leads me on to kind of this final point that I want to finish with, is we all have a choice as we innovate and as we think. We're in an innovation festival at the moment discussing how we do that. My challenge is, do we make a choice for sustainable innovation, to look at those 17 goals that the UN have put out there, or don't we? It's easy not to, but actually I'd really ask and challenge you to consider those opportunities that you have for sustainability within your innovation. And that can be product, it can be process, it can be service. There is no limit to really how you can be creative in your way to be sustainable. The UN Foundation summed up sort of in 2021 these 4 tests that reflect the sustainability goals, and they're kind of the takeaway points really from those 17 goals there. So it's sustainability, inclusion, innovation, and global solidarity. So as you innovate, I just leave you to try and think on how you can do that sustainably. There's always ways, and I think it's only right that we do consider these as we move forward out of this pandemic. So I've been Richard Taylor from Mouse, a small product design agency on a big mission to help innovation in a sustainable way, and it's been a great pleasure to be here with you today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, so fantastic point there is Richard working with not just one university, but multiple universities to meet the various needs. It now gives me, again, great pleasure to introduce James Leinhart from Levitex. We've been working for slightly longer with James, and I'm sure he'll be able to tell you, but there are certain opportunities that came out of the innovation for innovation during the COVID-19 pandemic, which James is now going to talk to you about. So over to you, James. Thank you so much.
Afternoon, everyone. I am James Leinhart. I'm the CEO of Posture Care and Levitex, and our collaborative mission is to educate the world in and around the importance of sleep posture and provide people with the education and tools with which to improve it. Posture Care predominantly is focused on making nighttime positioning equipment for patients suffering with complex neurological conditions, MS, cerebral palsy, catastrophic brain injury, for example, and we've developed over the years sleep systems to help manage that posture. And Levitex was looking at an innovation in polyurethane foam to try and improve pressure relieving technology in the market. And our fundamental mission is that if you correct sleep posture, it will improve the quality of your life. What I didn't know when I started on this mission was that the average intervention into the NHS largely takes between 19 and 21 years. And there's a lot to do. So how do we speed up that process? We very quickly realised that because there was no evidence base for the sorts of equipment that we were using, that independent clinical research was going to be the way forward in terms of legitimately marketing our product and having the authentic evidence to say this actually works. So our first project, like Jim said, we actually started with our sleep system almost back in 2016, and we ran a poster presentation with UCLan and the Medtech Solutions department. And we actually won the poster. Now, in the Posture Mobility Group conference, there are something like 70 seating companies and only 2 sleep system companies. And so to win that was a big achievement for us. And we continued that theory with Levitex, and we actually did a Wounds UK poster presentation in 2019 as well, which has been really helpful for us. So everything's going swimmingly, and Corona hits. And at the moment, we weren't actually quite sure what we were going to do. Our product for posture care is an assessment-led product, so we were physically going into care homes and hospitals, and we couldn't do that. But what we did notice was that there was a massive need for pillows and mattresses in all the ICUs. So we donated a load to Preston, to Wythenshawe Hospital, and amazingly and completely coincidentally, our pressure-relieving foam seemingly was perfect for proning unconscious patients who were ventilated. And so it led us to think, well, what else can we do and how can we help with this current pandemic, given that we really had to reduce our efforts in terms of going to see the traditional patients that we were working with. So not only did we sort of start working towards the importance of proning, we decided to help create a self-proning guide with a view that actually if patients were able to self-prone prior to going to hospital, actually it might reduce hospitalization numbers. It was a really successful project for us, and we were the sort of the number one download in this field. Second wave hits. Unfortunately, we had this extensive relationship with UCLan because they were approached by Dr. Sean Leinhart of Lancaster Teaching Hospital, who at the time was overwhelmed by volume of patients coming into the ICU and the physical time it took for nursing staff to actually position their patients. So I was called by Dr. Ambreen Chauhan, and we had a group meeting where the clinicians at LTHDR had an idea of how they could prone a conscious patient that they could be more comfortable and they could tolerate and they could take this intervention, actually be able to do it. If you consider that somebody in an ICU with corona was wearing a big CPAP hood, they would largely be overweight, breathless, exhausted, fatigued, and unable to actually physically turn was too much for them. But we also knew that proning was one of the most effective interventions during this pandemic. So they had their ideas, and it would have taken a really long time to develop. And it may or may not have been a good product. In the end, from memory, I think it had inflatable arms and all interesting sort of stuff that the clinicians had an idea for. But I went straight in with my current products, the products that we were already actually supplying Lancaster Teaching Hospital with, our sleep system, the Hugger, which we were providing in the neuro ward. And when we combined our sleep system with Levitex pillows, based on the pressure relieving benefits, we were able to make a working prototype within 2 weeks. Remembering that the average intervention takes 19 to 21 years, we straight away went back to UCLan with all the work that we were doing. And here's some of the very sophisticated prototyping methods that we use at Levitex and Posture Care. The floor was cleaned about 6 years before. We managed to get the product into underneath a patient. The most amazing thing was that UCLan were able within 2 weeks to get ethics organised, which would normally take 3 to 6 months and certainly longer if the ethics was required by the NHS. And this was really for us an overwhelming day. The gentleman in question managed over 2 hours in prone, having previously not tolerated the therapy, and his oxygen requirement reduced from 90 to 45% within those 2 hours. For us, this was exactly what we started the project for. Using nighttime positioning equipment rather than rolled up towels and folded pillows, and perhaps this was the first time ever that we were actually able to talk about these opportunities in the NHS and local authority. Furthermore, we're able to explore alternative uses, and we're also talking about how we can use our proning system with unconscious patients. An unconscious patient to be proned can take up to an hour and requires 8 members of staff. So how can we reduce that time, given that the capacity has been 200 to 300% since the start of the pandemic, in waves, of course. But also, what other things can we use nighttime positioning for? When you think about the fact that, the majority of patients are spending 95% of their time in hospitals in bed, and largely they have access only to waterproof fibre-filled pillows. And so positioning patients who are regularly uncomfortable is a massive problem. On the other side of that, what positive benefits could we use if posture was an intervention that was legitimately used in the NHS and local authority full time? What impact would that have on continuing care and patient outcomes? So we're talking about things like detached retinas, various cancer treatments, spondylitis. There are so many conditions and requirements for positioning in bed. And if we consider that actually sleep is an opportunity for treatment, then sleep posture immediately becomes that intervention. What was really exciting about this project was that we had, in 12 weeks, we were able to get product into the ICU in Lancs Teaching Hospital. Very quickly, we were able to put together some excellent PR. I was actually on BBC News, I was on the Gabby Logan show, various BBC coverage of what we were doing, which was really exciting and a real opportunity to open people's eyes to the importance of sleep posture in a time that was just so awful. Working again with UCLan, we were able to create a service evaluation protocol with ethics, like I said, and we're in the process now of gathering evidence with Lancs Teaching Hospitals to demonstrate the benefits of using proning equipment rather than pillows, and the impact that can have on patient outcomes. We've done competitor analysis and literature reviews with UCLan, identifying that actually this is a very underdeveloped market. Proning is something that started, I believe, in the SARS crisis that we had, but has never been as impactful and as effective as it has been with Corona. So now we really need to start thinking about and looking at what else can we use nighttime positioning equipment for. If we're spending all this time with our patients and they're asleep, we can use that time to treat. We updated the Conscious Patient Proning Guide, and Dr. Sean Leinhart kindly wrote us a foreword. And our view and our vision for this proning guide is that it's a free resource developed in partnership with UCLan and the teaching hospital, that anyone who is suffering with the beginnings of Corona can access this free resource and start to self-prone at home, because the impact of proning for those suffering with Corona has been phenomenal. UCLan also were able to have this sort of formally published with a DOI, so that when people refer to our Conscious Patient Proning Guide, that they actually have to reference our work, which is a big achievement for us. Our big hit, until of course he got fired, was that Matt Hancock actually wrote to us to thank us for the work that we'd done. And so the fact that we were able, from our first meeting with Sean in October to by the February, I think it was, to be at government level talking about proning and self-proning and its importance, for us was a really exciting part of the project. Like we've said before, all projects come with their challenges. And of course, working with the NHS, it is one big behemoth of an organisation, and it requires time and patience. whilst we all knew that the product was working and it was awesome, we really needed to try and get some more anecdotal evidence, and equally, we had to organise funding and all these sorts of things. So opening ourselves up to the wider NHS market has been a challenge, because unfortunately there's quite often not so much cross-pollination of new ideas. I suppose that's why we've been invited to come to this talk, to really scream and shout about the work we've done with UCLan in and around conscious patient pruning, because for us it's really a very exciting part of what we do as a business. At the time that this all happened, actually, there was a national foam shortage. You can just add that to the list of logistical nightmares that have sort of followed on from the pandemic. But not only were we trying to wrestle with the various departments in the NHS, but equally we had no way of producing the foam, whether our traditional production in the Far East that was sort of closed off, and certainly in the UK as well, we had that same problem. We got there in the end. What we've found very much in our sort of young journey as a business is that collaboration is absolute key. We are really good at making foam products. The hospital are really good at saving lives, and the university are really good at evidencing that and helping directors in a way that can make our products more beneficial. So in that small time, we were able to get a certificate of registration for a UK design. The Levitex foam is also patented, so we have the unique pressure relieving benefits of the foam that allowed for patients to get the pressure relief without sinking into the product. So they were able to maintain their positions and not develop poor spine health as a result of their positioning whilst in hospital. For us, this is what we get out of bed for. There is very little provision for nighttime positioning in healthcare across the board. So if you're somebody who's suffered a stroke, most likely you are lying in a bed unsupported. And the result of that can be quite catastrophic. You can see in the picture here that the gentleman in question actually walked into a hospital with dementia. He had a gastro problem and sadly never was able to walk again, and spent the last 7 years of his life on a bed. And the impact of that positionally in terms of its contracture and body shape deformity was really quite awful. And with very, very simple equipment, we were able to reposition this chap. And you can see quite clearly in the picture on the top right how much range was created. And this was in a matter of months. I think it was 3 months. So we know that the results are there. And when we're working with clinicians, they know the results are there. But how do we scream and shout about the work that we're doing? What is the most effective way, above and beyond clever marketing? And that's independent clinical evidence. And that's really why we intend to continue our relationship with UCLan, because the future is really exciting. We now have nighttime positioning on the map, and I've been given the nod. So I think I'm going to say thank you very much. And I'm going to pass you on to Jim. Thank you for hearing me.
Okay, so I'm now going to pull together my collaborators, colleagues, and we're just going to then take a few questions. We're just going to just stand over here. I've just been given my mark. Okay, so onto the roaming mic. Are we in the right place? Wonderful. Okay, so I believe there's been some questions in the chat room. I do feel like I've fallen down a well.
I was going to say, we could bounce it.
Okay, so what questions do we have on the chat room then? Okay. So what advice would you give to the punters out there about working with a university? I'm going to put you on the spot first, James.
The first thing is to find the awesome researchers that are generally hidden in the allied health and medtech department, as far as I'm aware. But to have a commonality in terms of a vision. Our vision is very much about making meaningful change in the provision of posture in healthcare, and patient outcome is a very key point for us. So when we're working with the researchers here, they share the same values, which makes the job really easy.
Okay, and Richard, obviously you've worked with more than one university, which is a really important point, that it's not just about working with one university, it's working with lots of resources that are available to you. So what's your advice and experiences?
Yeah, I think to echo James, you've got to find the right people to work with, and that's critical. Once you've found that network, the clarity of your goals essentially are really important. So having a defined objective, having a real sort of roadmap of what you want to achieve, and that's what led us to working with both UCLan and Lancaster. We realised there were specialities in both universities, and to bring them together was really valuable for us as a business.
And I think one of the points you've touched upon there was clear objectives. And this is absolutely critical for the university or for the academics as well. If you're not sure on what your objectives are, it's quite hard to identify what work needs to be done. With that clarity of objectives, which you both had, that real clarity, that real vision of exactly what you're trying to achieve, and we were able to have those conversations about getting that route and identifying the various work packages that we had to achieve to run through the whole process.
Great question. Very conscious about your IP when we're trying to find collaborators.
Okay, so did that come through on the chat? Okay, so were you concerned about IP when you were looking for collaborators? Okay.
In short, yes, IP is absolutely critical. But actually, being able to collaborate is probably more critical, because without those collaborations, you're not quite sure perhaps what your IP is going to end up being. We did all of our collaborations under NDAs, and that was an absolutely great mechanism for us to be able to work with our partners, and we felt that was absolutely enough, and it covered us up to the point where we'd want to get our own design registrations put in place, and make sure that we had the paperwork and the paper trail there. Yeah, so yes, it is important, but NDAs are great, and it's quite a simple way of working.
I fully agree. From our perspective, we always made sure that we were covered, I guess. I don't know that it's something that one needs to consider when working with the university, that's for sure. Integrity here is key. But I think more important than the IP actually is our approach to the work. You can re-engineer things, you can copy things for sure, but if your approach and your mantra and your integrity isn't there, frankly, the IP is irrelevant.
I mean, you both touched upon a really important point with the NDAs. All universities will have a reasonably standard NDA, and it is very, very important that you get the non-disclosure agreement, the NDA, in place before sharing any details. And this is something that we always ensure we get in place. So I think that's absolutely critical. With some of the programs that we run with ERDF, European Regional Development Fund, there is an NDA implicit within that, which is within the documentation that when we first register. But if it's outside of that, then an NDA is absolutely essential for all parties, because there's background IP as well from the academics part, and the NDA is to protect both sides equally.
Questions put in as well. James, have you ever worked with universities? And I guess this could be both, but both. What's next for both companies? What's next?
So what's next?
Okay, taking over the world, is that too small? Really for us, like I said in the presentation, nighttime positioning and sleep posture is something that's really underdeveloped across as a provision for patient care. And for us, we're hoping that this opportunity where we had with Corona, where we were able to create this amazing product and make meaningful change in the ICUs, will be a stepping stone for us. And we have so much more research. We actually have 7 more pieces of research in play with UCLan this year. So there's exciting stuff to come.
I think the biggest sort of learning for myself and our agency has been about the sustainability aspects and the challenges that's laid out. And I sort of went on a bit about it in my talk, but actually the big thing is whatever steps that we take next, whether that's working with clients, which we do as a sort of independent designers, or whether it's on our own projects, on our own work, like the face visor, is to really challenge ourselves on how we can do innovation, and but do it more sustainably. I'm not saying we've got it all right, but we're certainly on a journey where we're hoping to improve ourselves and also improve our clients' work as well.
Okay, thank you both. Any other questions? Oh my goodness. Okay, so
So the next question is for Richard. Have you considered any other PPE using similar tech?
It's a great question. Right at the start, actually, you've made me remember we had a whole array of PPE out when we were sort of ideating around this process. And yes, there's definitely opportunities there. There's opportunities for eco-friendly PPE to be done in lots of different ways. And it's just about seeing the opportunity and seeing the market demand, and seeing how, particularly as we come out or progress through COVID, I'd like to say we're coming out, but I think we're progressing through the next stage, how that looks. And so we're keeping a very close eye on the market and trying to really understand the developments there before we make our next moves. But yeah, always looking for the next thing.
okay, so I think we'll draw this session to an end. So thank you so much for all your questions. We can't see the questions coming in, but we will have a look at the questions afterwards. And if you are wanting to get in contact with either myself or the two speakers, please make sure you get in contact. My contact details are on the Medtech Solutions website, but my email address is jrichards@uclan.ac.uk, and I'll gladly put you in touch with the two speakers if you've got any additional questions you would like answered. Thank you so much for your time and for listening, and have a good rest of the afternoon. Thank you.